Hey guys, it's Sonia and welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to kind of talk a little bit about feeling unseen and invisible in life and how that actually relates to limerence. So you may actually find this a little bit familiar, but if you're limerent right now for someone or romantically obsessed in some way, nothing to be ashamed about, okay, because some of us, we are all here because we are experiencing this. Um, I've kind of noticed that people who are limerent tend to feel invisible in general in life, and they don't show up in the way that they want to or they are supposed to. And also, limerence is a kind of being invisible to the person that you actually really like, right? So I will unpack a little bit of that as the video gets on. But first, let me just remind you of what is limerence. And according to Dr. Dorothy Tanoff, who invented this whole concept, is an uncontrollable, biologically determined, inherently irrational instinct-like reaction, which is intrusive and invades our consciousness against our will. Okay, so it's rather uncontrollable. It's not something that you actually have a lot of you have a lot of power over, at least that's what you feel. And it's also something that actually can really take over your life, okay, because if you're watching this video, you probably understand what I mean. um, I would also like to introduce this concept of a conflict. Okay, human beings, we have all sorts of conflicts in our lives. Okay, so we may want to have more confidence, we may want to have more money, we may want to have like the right kind of relationships, we might want to have the right job, but there is always something that is standing between us and what we want. Okay, in terms of confidence, it could be like you have certain stuff from your past that you haven't healed. When it comes to having more money, it could be more. It could be psychological. It could be spiritual related. It also could be infrastructure related in terms of like you finding the right job. And in terms of relationships, there could be many other conflicts as well. So when it comes to a limerence conflict, what a limerent person really wants for themselves is that they want to love and they want to be loved. Okay, so it's everyone wants to be loved. Okay, but it's incredibly strong and incredibly powerful for a limerent person because they want this thing, but they're actually not really quite getting it yet. So the conflict that stands between a limerent person's desire for love, and it's preventing them from getting the real love that they want, could be many reasons, which you can see on the right side of the slide. So it could be reasons like, I'm not good enough, love isn't meant for me in this lifetime, I always fall for people who do not like me back, I'm scared of falling in love, I'm afraid of love, there are no good women or men out there. Something I hear, very commonly from clients, and there could be this concept of, thinking that no one notices me. Okay, and this is what I really want to focus on today, which is this idea that many limerent people have, that they are actually invisible and that the people that they like do not like them back because they don't see them. Okay, um, I would like to kind of talk a little bit about my own experience first before I dive into what leads to feelings of invisibility. When I was limerent and kind of like going through it with different limerent for different people, um, I tended to keep myself very small, and I kind of did that in many areas of my life. So I did not want to show up in terms of like my personality and my talents. I hid away my strengths as well a lot. I didn't speak up much in the environments that I was in, not in school, not at work, not with friendship groups as well. I had difficulties asserting myself and telling other people who I am and what I wanted. I had difficulties asserting my boundaries as well. And this came up and popped up in different areas in my life. Okay, and it particularly manifested in romantic relationships because I was always hiding away from people that I liked, and I tend to really get very obsessed with the person that I liked, and then I'll hide away from them. I kind of minimize my kind of like my personality. I'll minimize like myself, try to be invisible, try to be like transparent, and then get really, really upset when the person doesn't, respond to me and doesn't see me. Okay, so what can possibly lead to feelings of invisibility that I felt and you could be feeling as well? Um, One of them is actually the fear of being seen in life. Okay, and our fears could be, it could stem from many, many different things. But you could be afraid of, showing your true self. Afraid of being emotionally exposed, or you are afraid of being vulnerable, you are afraid of showing people who you really are because you are afraid that they might see your weaknesses, they might see your real self and find that dumb, or whatever kind of perspective you have towards not wanting to show yourself. um Limerence, with its very invisible nature, because it's one-sided, it's fantasy, it's all mental, it's a very mental activity. It allows you to kind of avoid the emotional exposure that you might feel if you are, interacting with or in a relationship with someone. So in this sense, you don't get to truly be seen by the person. You don't get to, I wouldn't say get to, but you don't want to actually let the person see who you are. The good stuff and the not so good stuff. But sometimes when we find ourselves, hiding our not so, or what we think is our not so good side of ourselves too much, we end up hiding our shine as well. We end up hiding a lot of our strengths as well, which is not great. Okay, and when you fear being seen in life, it could be also a habit. Maybe from young you were actually told to keep quiet, which I experienced when I was younger. You might have been told that your personality kind of sucks, okay, which I was also told as a very young child. I was told that I was a bit too loud, too brash, too playful, just being a child, but, I was told that I was too playful, too mischievous, and blah, blah, blah. So I started kind of just keeping quiet and keeping really invisible and really, really silent because I realized that, or I learned that that didn't get me into trouble. Speaking out did, but if I kept myself invisible, I didn't get into trouble with anybody and nobody could pick on me, for being who I am. You might also find yourself, how this usually manifests is that you may also find yourself, kind of hiding away from responsibilities at work or at school. Like maybe someone sees something really, really good in you, and instead of accepting it, you kind of keep running away from it, or you keep suffering from this thing called imposter syndrome, where you think that you actually don't deserve it, and you self sabotage some of the opportunities that come your way. You may also find yourself actually not really liking to take pictures of yourself, not really liking to look at yourself in the mirror. Some things that I actually experienced myself. And actually, when I started my business, I did not even want to show my face because I just wanted to hide. um, I was afraid of people kind of like knowing that I was going through this, and I just kind of hid away all the stuff that I was actually going through, which didn't help. It didn't help me, and it didn't help another person because I was constantly thinking about how to hide myself. So it can manifest in many areas in life, and unfortunately also manifest in your love life, which is why a lot of limerent people um, tend to kind of stay in that space of limerence because it keeps them invisible, it keeps them from being seen by people, and when they are not seen, they don't feel that they are vulnerable and they don't feel exposed, and they don't feel like they need to be picked apart or picked on. Okay, so sometimes it's really it's um it's a protective mechanism for the self. The second reason why people tend to be really, really, just kind of really want to be invisible, and which leads to limerence, is the fear of rejection. Okay, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but when you kind of appear or show up as yourself, the good stuff and the bad stuff, you get judged by people, definitely, because people are going to kind of look at you and listen to you and watch you, and they are going to have an opinion. Okay, some people might like you and some people might not, but if you are very, very tuned into this idea of being liked, pleasing another person, and just needing to be liked and needing to be popular, it is very, very difficult to square that with showing your real self, because when you show your real self, you definitely expose yourself to not being liked. Okay, and a fear of rejection is actually very, very painful for many people, many, many people. It actually feel, you feel the pain, the physical pain when you're actually rejected by someone or something. So when you are not when you fear, being rejected by someone, you want to be accepted by people, you want to feel belonged, it can lead you to feeling just being like, keeping a really, really, really low or silent profile and just being invisible, because then, people do not have to reject you. Because when you're not showing up to them, and when you're not showing them yourselves to them, they have no opportunity to actually reject you, right? And the kind of, the obsession, over someone that you don't really know, which, happens in Limerence, is that it serves as a very safe sort of, fantasy space that prevents you from being vulnerable with the other person, being vulnerable with yourself, and facing potential rejection in real relationships. Because real relationships is so fraught with so many different things, where you can be like, you like someone doesn't like you back, or, you like them romantically, they like you as a friend, um or, just being in a relationship as well, your partner does not like will not like everything about you. And if you have a very, very severe fear of rejection, that can be very, very difficult to accept, and that can be very difficult to actually, to be with, right? And this kind of, fear can be so deep rooted that it actually manifests as invisibility, wearing the invisibility cloak in your life. The next reason, as kind of touched upon earlier, is that you really want the safety from real relationships, because like I said, real relationships can be super complicated. It can be full of different things. It can be a space where you need a very strong sense of self, because you've been going through a lot of different things. I'm just gonna put the lower the volume for my music. You're going to be going through a lot of different things with your partner, and sometimes, relationships don't go very smoothly, and it leads to a breakup, which, I mean, breakups can be like the most, it leaves you really, really exposed and vulnerable. And a lot of people don't deal with breakups very well, which is understandably so. So, to protect yourself from all this and to get safety from real relationships, you kind of keep yourself fenced into this fantasy or this mental exercise that limerence is, so that you don't really have to engage in anything that the person actually does. In your fantasy self, or your fantasy like thing that you have in limerence, the person could be anybody you want them to be, and they will always react to you perfectly. They always will never find fault with you. They'll be amazing people. They will always look like 10 out of 10. They will always do what you say, and it's just, it feels amazing, because you can create literally any partner that you want, kind of really like an avatar, in your mental fantasies. But you can't do that in real life, because people are people. They have their own decision making, thought process. They have their own thoughts and feelings and reactions to things, and they might not react in the way that you like. um, and this unpredictability or uncertainty that a lot of the Maroon people feel that they get from real relationships, they don't feel that in their fantasy relationships, which is why they tend to gravitate towards that, and which is why it's just best to just be invisible, just appear in fantasy and just not engage in anything that is based in reality. Um, so those are a couple of reasons why, we tend to keep ourselves invisible, and that kind of, ties in very strongly is why we're limerent. And the next part of this, I just want to kind of talk through some, practical steps you can actually take to increase your visibility. I know this sounds really strange, but if you have been invisible for, like, keeping yourself really, really small for a very long time, you have already probably seen it manifest in different areas of your life. So you probably have rejected or have been really reluctant to take on some responsibility at work. You have been really reluctant to take on leadership roles, certain step up and be yourself, step up and show off, your talents, to talk about the things that you do. People that want to be invisible or that love being invisible find it very hard to talk about themselves. Okay, so this is actually really some small steps that you can start taking to express yourself a little bit better in the world, to make yourself a little bit more seen, a bit more visible, and a bit more you, instead of hiding behind some invisible rock or some invisible cloak. You're actually out there living in the world, and people can see you and see how amazing you are. So the first thing that you can actually do is to take certain steps to make you feel seen. And what I mean by that is, next time when, let's say, you have an opportunity to talk about yourself, or you have an opportunity to tell your boss what you did at work. Not all bosses actually really know what their subordinates are doing, by the way. So, to showcase yourself a little bit, just you don't have to kind of give like a 10-minute speech on how amazing you are. Though if you're at that space, you might need other kind of support actually. You don't have to give like a 10-minute speech on how like amazing you are, or kind of amazing things you're doing at work. But just here and there, just be like, oh, I did this report and I really enjoyed doing this charting. These are my thoughts around the analysis that I did. These are my thoughts about this particular piece of project. These are my thoughts on this client. You don't really need to give a lot of detail. But just get used to hearing your own voice and your input, and get used to actually hearing your own opinions and putting them out there, and letting people interact with your opinion. Don't keep them to yourself, because when you're invisible, or you like to be invisible, you tend to keep your opinions about things yourself. You don't want people to shred them apart. Let them, just put out something that is safe, in a topic that you feel safe, talking about and sharing about, and just just give your opinion. Just be like, oh, this bread, it's actually not really nice. I don't really like food like that. I prefer another kind of cuisine. Just things like that. And when you talk about yourself in sharing in different ways, very innocuous and very bite-sized ways, you don't come across like some sort of narcissist as well. You are just sharing what you feel about things, and that's how you get to interact with other people, and someone will hear it and kind of build on it or ask you more questions, and that's how you kind of come out of your shell. Another thing that I really like to do is as well is to interact with the world around me. And what do I mean by that? So, I don't, there are times when I feel like, we are always kind of walking around looking at our phones and kind of plugged in, but that keeps you very in your own space. So what I tend to do is, sometimes when you're in a coffee shop and I'm kind of like ordering my coffee, and I'll just chat up the barista. Um, I'll just chat up the person at the counter where I'm getting something, ask them how's their day, ask them about the coffee, ask them about, just make small talk. um Make small talk with your colleagues as well, or yeah, go join them for lunch. If you're always someone that always hides away at your desk, go join them for lunch. Go join after work drinks or whatever it is, and get to know people. Get to know people, get to talk. If groups actually kind of scare you, try it with like a smaller group, like two or three other people, or try it with like one-on-one with someone that you actually feel very comfortable with. um Another tip that I really enjoy, but sometimes I'm really learning as well, is to make your voice and make yourself feel seen in a group, because it's very easy to kind of be present when you're one-on-one, and if you're starting to make yourself feel visible, that might be the most comfortable method that you have at this point in time. But when you are in a group, try to kind of build on someone else's points or give your own opinion on something. You don't have to keep talking or hogging the limelight, and you won't be. Okay, don't worry. But give your input. Listen, give your input. Listen, give your input, and be present, because that's how people see you. That's how people hear you. Because when you are like in this like very small invisible space, it's very easy to just like you just sit there and just keep quiet. And sometimes when you're in group situations and you're not engaging with the conversation, people tend to ignore you as well, because they're like, oh, this person doesn't really have much to say. I'm not gonna talk to him or her. So those are some steps to make you feel seen in the world. You join people for things, go for things, be there, and say something. And it doesn't have to be anything big. Just say something. Okay. The next thing that you can do is one-on-one relationships, your friendships with people, just express yourself. Don't hold back your feelings, don't hold back any sort of opinions that you have, for fear of rejection or judgment. You're going to say stuff that you think is amazing or perfect, and people are still going to judge you, because you have no idea what people are going to think about you, and you can't control that. um, what I found, when I was kind of stepping into my own personal power, and as I was kind of healing from limerence and all the other things that I was actually facing, was that I started being more expressive with my friends. I didn't hold back my feelings, because I'm not someone that I'm quite a reactive person, and I'm quite feelings driven as well. Um, So, whenever I feel a bit of gratitude, or I feel like joy, or I feel like, it was amazing time, amazing catch up with this person, I'll actually let the person know. I'll be like, I had a really great chat tonight. Let's do it again. Like, or I really like your top, I will say things like that. And it doesn't have to mean anything, and we don't have to take ourselves so seriously, okay? But we can start by expressing what we truly feel. Okay. Of course, I'm not saying go out and be mean and start being mean to people. You can start with the nice things first. Say I had a good time. It's a good dinner. Let's do it again and stuff like that. Expressing yourself in safer spaces like in friendships, and then when you start meeting people that you really like on dates, it's easier to express yourself, and it's easier to be yourself, and it's also easier to not be to be more visible. Okay. The next tip that I have is to really make one-sided connections feel unfamiliar, and to make reciprocal connections feel familiar. Okay, so this is a habit forming thing with a lot of limerent people. It's very common for us to actually find like relationships where we are constantly invisible, or where the person doesn't really see us or treat us well. We tend to use those connections, or actually gravitate towards those connections, because they feel very familiar to us. It's like a habit, and it's like a pattern. And what you need to do if you want to break out of the mirrors is to break out of that pattern and make reciprocal relationships which are feel a little which are unfamiliar to you right now, to feel more familiar. Because when you make reciprocal relationships feel familiar to you and make it a norm in your life, you will not gravitate towards one-sided romantic obsessions or mental fantasies that only exist in your head. Okay, basically you will not be limerent. So start taking steps to actually make one-sided connections feel familiar. So whenever you meet up with people like, casually in your life, and you ask them out for something, or you want to actually grab something to eat, and you actually told them about it, and it seems like the person is not very interested, they're not really texting you back, they're not really like making plans and stuff like that, you can let it go. Okay. Try to weed out people that actually really enjoy being around you, and that when you express yourself, remember, practice self-expression. When you express yourself, they actually reciprocate. Okay, those are going to be your people, those are going to be your tribe. And once you get used to knowing how to pick up people like that in friendships, it'll get easier for you in romantic situations as well. And that will make you less invisible, and not limerent, less limerent over time. The very last one is to really do your own shadow work. And shadow work is not something I can unpack in like 1 minute here, but it's a whole like course, or whole like kind of study into itself. But really, the shadow work is, in the months that you have to do, is really all your unconscious stuff, the stories that you've been telling yourself about love, the stories you've been telling yourself about your potential partner, the stories you have been telling yourself about yourself, your fears that you have towards love, the fears that you have towards romantic connections, the self like confidence issues that you might be facing, the self love issues that you might be facing, stuff that you might not be accepting about you. You kind of have to face them down and start bringing them to your conscious, because a lot of shadow work is kind of, it's not really unconscious, some is, but it's just like your shadow, right? It's just at the back of you, it's at the back of your mind, and you can't really get rid of it, because um you know you have not done the work. So sometimes you think that consciously you're doing all these things to actually get better at limerence and try to cure, but you're actually not making any progress. It's because you're not doing enough of your shadow work, or you're not really dealing with the underlying unconscious stuff that might still be hanging around, that you haven't quite cleared yet. And I actually have a video coming out uh, as well on limerence and shadow work, and I hope you check that out, because I talk a lot more about what the shadow is and how to actually heal it. But these are some of the tips that you can start to use to make yourself feel a little less limerent, a little less invisible, because all of us deserve love. You want love, I want love as well. And if you are constantly telling yourself that nobody notices you, and you're constantly noticing that nobody notices you, it can keep you in this very, very small space. Like with an invisible cloak, where nobody sees you, and it's just a self fulfilling prophecy that you don't want to have in your life. Because, you know, when you think that you're invisible, you start to act like you're invisible, you start to act like very small, and like I said, manifest in different ways you start to hide from different things, hide from different situations in your life, and you start to you start to actually yeah, you just start to not appear, and be as visible as much in your life. And what happens then is that, yeah, people then start treating you like you're invisible, and then you're like, oh, it's because I'm this and that and stuff like that. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So with that, I would like to end. I have actually a book that is out, and I'll link that down in the description below. And I have also opened my one-on-one sessions, and I'm taking on a little bit more clients these days, because I finally have the bandwidth. My new book is done. More details on it soon, but I actually do tarot reading as well as coaching. So the links are also down below. So get in touch if you need one-on-one help. I hope this video has helped you in some way, and don't be invisible. Bring yourself out there in the world. You're unique, and everybody wants to see you. Okay, so with that, thank you so much, and I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.